or go out on April Fool's Day.
Oh, of course.
I never do April Fool's Day.
I don't like April Fools.
You just get up late and you'll be fine. You have to do it before midday, don't you?
I think so. I quite enjoy really obvious April Fools. Like one time I saw an advert for gum that was flavoured to be like fried chicken.
Right.
Or something like that. And it was so ridiculous that it was like, what?
The newspaper always has like an article, an April Fool's article, which isn't real, don't they?
Yeah.
And I think nowadays you just have to find the most normal seeming article in the paper, and that'll be the joke one.
It's like April Fool's is backwards now.
Sort of, yeah. It's like, you know, when people say that we've had enough of like Boris and Trump and bombastic politics, we just want boring now.
Yeah.
That's what April Fool's Day should be now, just like a morning of sober, boring.
Like that one time where they said, we have no news, so here's some music.
Exactly. Yeah, anyway, so should we say the title of the podcast then and say welcome to everybody and all that stuff?
I can do it, I don't mind.
Yeah, good. You're better at it.
Okay. Welcome to Chats Over Coffee with my yoga teacher. I am the yoga teacher.
And I am I like saying student because I think it's funny, but well, I am, aren't I? But I mean, also, yeah. Also,
students of life, anyway.
Yeah, aren't we all? Also, I do stand-up comedy as well, so go me.
So what have you got going on this month then?
Oh, God, just gigging again. But obviously, my website, peterbrashcomedy.com, will have all the dates if anyone wants to see me do something for 20 minutes on a club night, usually. I don't have any like hour shows or anything like that. Oh, I'm going to the Isle of Man, actually. I forgot about that. I get to go to the Isle of Man. Cool. Yeah, I've never been there before, so I think I get to see the statue of the Bee Gees. Are you doing anything notable in April? Please be doing something more interesting than me just saying, I'll just do what I do every single month.
Well, not too crazy in April on my diary, but what I have done is since January, I've been sending out some emails to a specific email list that I created or, asked people to join. And I've decided that they're going to be they're a bit bloggy. So I decided I'm going to start doing that, I think, as a proper blog, which sounds a bit weird, but it'll be more like tips and things to help and things to share. So I find that sometimes when we post on social media, you can't say as much as you might want, or you want to maybe lay it out like steps and have like a proper little article. So I'm not going to inundate people, but yeah, if you're interested in yoga stuff like that, or even mental health and general health stuff and holistic health, then that's the kind of stuff we'll cover. So keep an eye out for that. It's also on my website. If you don't want to get the email, that's fine. And I have put some free classes on my website. They're little mini taster classes. So they're 7 minutes, 16 minutes, and 30 minutes of yoga. So meditation and stuff like that as well. So if anyone is actually interested in seeing me in action, that's on my website now.
Oh, so cool. Okay.
Go check it out.
That is a thing to plug, yeah. Your website is?
My name.
Yeah.
It is KaylaMcCormack.com.
I'll put links to that in the description as well. So
yeah.
And you've got free regular online classes still every week.
Not free, 3.
Free, the number 3.
I'm picking on you. Yeah, 3, the number 3 classes a week online. So keep an eye out though. It's all there on my website if you're looking for me.
Right. So should I make the show starts then?
I think so. Gonna start taking naps,
Someone told me once, I don't know if you ever tried this, so I can't verify that this is a good thing to try, but someone told me that what can really sort you out is if you have a coffee and then have a nap for 20 minutes, then you wake up and the caffeine's kicked in and apparently you just feel normal again.
Oh.
But I've not tried that.
Well, I do know that there are some people who have the opposite reaction to caffeine. It's the way their body processes it. So like caffeine makes them sleepy.
Oh, right.
It's not super common, but maybe that person was just on the verge of caffeine making them sleepy and they didn't realize. But they thought, what really helps? If you have a coffee, then you fall asleep and then then you feel great.
So does that mean that if that person drank alcohol, it would be the same as drinking coffee for most of us?
Oh, maybe. Maybe it's like everything's flipped.
Maybe when they're on like a night out, they have to knock back the espressos.
Yeah.
And when they're like, go and meet someone at a coffee shop, have some sambucas instead.
Maybe.
Stupid. Anyway. So I was going to ask, about going upside down and why that was good.
Okay.
And I was also going to ask you if you had ever seen a ghost.
Okay, I like this.
Just because I think on average, Americans are more into ghosts than British people, aren't they? I think, don't you think?
I don't know. I mean, I think it probably didn't help that when I came over, Andrew's mom was really into those ghost hunting programs. What was it called? That one with that. It was a blonde woman. Was it just ghost hunting?
I don't know. I think that's...
They were here in England, and they went around to all these old like houses and stuff in England, and they had all these like night cameras, and they obviously go, the floorboard would creak, and then they go, oh, "Do you hear that? Did you hear that?" So I kind of got the impression that everybody here was ghost crazy too, but maybe that was just.
we would have older buildings, wouldn't we? I guess, Tower of London and stuff supposed to be haunted, and.
Have you seen a ghost?
No, I haven't done. I worked in hospitals, though, and then staff members would say that they'd seen things.
Really?
So I thought, well, it's all well and good, isn't it, when you haven't seen one or had a weird sort of experience like that, to say that people have just invented it and it's all a psychological trick and all that stuff.
Yeah, it's a bit much, isn't it, just to poo-poo it like that when so many people have had experiences.
I mean, you usually think there's some sort of scientific explanation for things, but so I didn't want to dismiss people that seemed, because sometimes there are people that you don't expect to have had sort of experiences, have sort of had like one thing be a bit weird and stuff.
I mean, I think like you can compound the problem. Like if you really truly believe it, and then you think you're experiencing something, like you can make it worse for yourself. Like if you're scared, for instance, if you're actually scared, then like, yeah, you're going to be at the point where like, oh, I think I just saw something. And then that, the floorboard creaking because the house is cold or warm is going to make you jump, so potentially you can make the experience feel more scary by being like hyper alert, if you will, because you thought you saw something, things like that. Because I know, so when we moved from Maryland to South Carolina, we moved straight into this, what's it called, tri-level house. That house was horrible. So it was fine in terms of a house, but honestly, just the weirdest things used to happen all the time. Like radios would just turn on, things would just fall. And in the end, it was just like, oh my God, we basically talked ourselves into the fact that we were living in a haunted house. And so we were constantly scared all the time. We lived there for about, probably not even 6 months. I would have been about 10. And we just used to all end up sleeping in bunk beds in the same room because we just couldn't sleep alone. Everything would scare us. Because we decided the house was haunted. And my parents weren't overly pushy about trying to say, no, it's not, don't be ridiculous, stuff like that. I think they were a bit like, oh, maybe, I don't know. They were just kind of a bit loose about it. So that didn't help. And my grandma didn't help because my grandma lived with us at the time as well. And she kept saying she kept seeing this woman in a white dress. So that didn't help. No. My 10-year-old mind, So yeah, that's about my extent of experience with ghosts, is that house. Probably just had electrical problems or something.
I don't know, you can rationalise it afterwards, I suppose, but that could be just like trying to explain away things that maybe were weird, and because you're not there now, it's like you've got distance to be able to say that and go, oh, it was probably all bunk, but maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, I wouldn't straight up say like 100% yes, I believe in ghosts and they're all around us all the time. But, I do think like you're saying, there's just strange things, and I don't know, maybe there was a giant stone under the ground that was a magnet. I don't know.
Yeah,
just messing everything up.
Ley lines or something. Like,
yeah, the idea of ley lines and stuff like that. Yeah, exactly. So
who knows?
I
do think it's so stupid. Whenever I was staying in a new house, I do, like, there's always part of me thinking, I wonder if... Because I'd be so annoyed to buy a haunted house. Oh. You're not going to mention it on your Rightmove profile, are you? Like,
you'd be like, oh, the house is great, super cozy, really warm, no damp, no issues, but it does have a ghost. A little old lady who's really mean.
I don't sit strongly on the it's a load of bollocks side, because...
I feel maybe I'm a bit too emotional about it to go straight into this complete bollocks. Maybe it's a nice idea to think that maybe there's some energy release when we die and we don't die or something like that.
Yeah, but it doesn't have to be... Are they sort of supposed to be shadows almost of things that were there, so that there might not be conscious beings of people?
Yeah, actually that reminds me of another experience I had. So This one's a little bit more, could be just a nervous system related, the problem I didn't realize I had, But basically, when I went to Edinburgh with my aunt, we went to, is it St. Mary's Close? The one that's underground, and it's like how they used to live during the plague and stuff like that. So it's like old Edinburgh, and it's all underground. It's all original. It's all what it actually was. Like they just paved the road over top of it. So then you have to go into a building and then down, and then it's like these warrens under the road that you can kind of walk through. And they turned it into a bit of a museum. So you walk through with a guide, and they have all these original things as well in there, like old beds and stuff, like real beds, not just like replicas. And so it's a bit like, it's kind of creepy. And you're underground, so you're 100% like, you're not outside. So we started walking through all these things, and I was like, yeah, this is a bit weird. And they did give a warning at the beginning, you can't be claustrophobic and go on this tour. So I was like, I'm not claustrophobic. I'm fine with elevators and stuff. It's no problem. But down there, at one point, we went into one room, just one room, not all the rooms, just one room. She was talking about the 2 people who died in there from the plague. And I was stood there, and I was just like, I am sweating from head to toe. Like, I could not, I thought my heart was beating 100 miles an hour, I was sweating from head to toe. I genuinely thought, I'm going to pass out. And I've never had anything like that before, and I've never had anything like that since. And when I told Andrew's mom about it, she just, because obviously she's quite into her spiritualism and things like that, she said that I was picking up the energies in the room, like the negative energies of all the death and all the things, all the horrible things that happened in there. And that was affecting me. It wasn't necessarily like there was a ghost. It was more like, just that, like you were saying, maybe like the leftover energy of all the things that had happened. And I was like, well, I don't know what it was, but I just wanted to get the hell out of there. I actually sat down. I was the only person that sat down, and the tour guide looked at me, and I was just like, I don't know what to do. She said, don't come in if you're claustrophobic, and I didn't think I was claustrophobic, but now I'm not so sure. But then once we left that room, I was fine. Like, I started breathing properly again and stuff. So, yeah, it was interesting. So maybe that's an experience.
Well, I know people have seen things they've got like, crypts or something in Edinburgh, haven't they? That's so old. I know people that have seen things in there, and they don't seem to be explained. That they're not, like, it wasn't an actor hired as a ghost to jump out at someone, it's a bit more, who knows. But I also think that if you become a ghost when you die, I thought, well, that'd be quite nice to some degree, to sort of feel like you could just like float about and whatever. But what happens when the world blows up in a couple of billion years?
It's also a bit like, is that a nice idea?
What do you do then? I mean, you just float into space or something afterwards.
I prefer the idea of more just like kind of like residual energies are lingering, and then when you from things that have happened or whatever, and possibly
like a smell
when you die, like a smell. I'm haunted by a smell. Yeah, exactly. Like, it's just kind of like a lingering kind of thing, rather than an entity with a consciousness, with a
all this, when you see ghost stories and stuff in films, it's always like people with unfinished business and trauma and that sort of thing. I don't know if
I've also heard the theory that ghosts aren't the people. They're like what they needed to leave behind. And then the people have moved on. And then the ghosts are the things they had to let go of. So almost like a split personality idea, that's like an imprint. So that's why you might get like a repetitive ghost, one that like, I don't know, climbs the stairs every night at midnight or something like that. Because it's not them. It's like what they had to let go of to move on. So I thought that was a pretty
well. So that's a little bit like having cognitive behavioural therapy, then, in some ways, isn't it? It's just like a load of OCD ghosts now that have to do, that ghost has to do the number of stairs that
that he did before that accident happened. I just have to do it over and over again. And I'll just check the door again. Hold on.
That almost sort of makes sense in some.
Some pleasant kind of way. It kind of sounds all right, doesn't it? And then they don't have to worry about the sun exploding and engulfing them, because they're just imprints anyway.
But where's the other bit go?
Heaven, I suppose.
Yeah, I suppose so.
If that's the idea. Or moves on, whatever, to the beyond,
I'm reading Tom Holland's book about Christianity at the moment.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, it's great. Really interesting.
What, like history of Christianity, or just...
Basically, the history of it and how it influences Western thought and stuff. He just, he thinks everything comes from Christianity.
Everything, yeah.
And it's probably true. But just, like, when sort of, like, certain Christian laws just get introduced, but like 1,000 years after Christ died and stuff like that. I just didn't think of, so that isn't in the original sort of, how does the Bible get made up? Who decided when those books were like, you know.
I did a bit of that studying a little while ago, not ages ago, but a little bit. And it is interesting because there are other Bible books that aren't in the Bible. And it's kind of like, shouldn't they be in there too?
Because there's 4 Gospels, but I think there were more, and some of them were a bit weirder, and they were just like,
Because which one is it that you can buy? You can just buy it on its own. The Gospel of someone else that isn't in the Bible.
All right.
I'm trying to think of who's missing, and I just keep thinking of Bible books now. Which doesn't help. But anyway, yeah. It's interesting. Yeah.
It is interesting. And there's just like, I don't know, it's stuff I didn't think of. Like, apparently there's no, obviously this is like goes way back, but just like, I didn't, you know, when Moses and the rest of the Jews are stuck in Egypt, and he's like, you know, they send all the plagues and all that stuff, and then they escape and stuff. There's no record in any of the Egyptian archives of that happening at all. It's just in the Jewish record. It's where you think that they're like the Egyptians who recorded a load of stuff. There's just absolutely no mention of.
It seems a bit odd, doesn't it?
It does seem a bit odd.
I wonder if they didn't mention it because they were embarrassed.
Yeah, it could be.
or you know, just like plain old selfish reasons. Don't mention that.
A bit like how we try not to mention slavery and stuff. Yeah,
yeah, exactly. Or if it was just, you know, there was some other kind of more cynical reason, like it didn't happen.
Yeah, maybe not. It's sort of almost connected to ghosts in a way, but there's so many like stories of people that became saints that, like, you know, perform miracles and got visited by, you know, just so many of those things.
So are there saints in both Church of England and Catholic?
I'm Church of England raised, so most of our churches still say saint in them. Maybe the saint is specifically chosen.
Yeah.
St. Paul or St. Peter would be like, well, they're like the pillars of the whole thing, aren't they? But maybe specific other saints that...
Because there seems to be a lot of saints, isn't there?
There's bloody loads of them,
yeah.
You don't pray to saints, do you, if you're Church of England? Or?
Oh, okay.
But you do if you're Catholic, don't you? Because you pray to... like, if you've lost something, there's a patron saint of, like, lost things.
Lost stuff.
We talked about it before, didn't we? Because they just get these ridiculous workloads. And you can tell the ones that like know what they're doing get loads of really tough assignments, whereas they have like patron saints for like chess and stuff.
He must be pretty chill.
Or useless. You've been demoted.
Yeah. The patron saint of lost stuff must be super busy though, like you say.
Yeah.
Where did I put my glasses? Oh, please, where did I put my glasses? They're on your head.
You know, like when people like bring IT people and the cliched line is, have you tried turning it off and on again? I bet that that'll just be like, where was the last place you remember having it? It's the equivalent of that, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh, here's a question for you. Have you read the Jesus Papers?
No.
That's good. I'd read that. That's good. Write it down. Because the guy who wrote the Da Vinci Code worked as an archaeologist with the guy who wrote the Jesus Papers. And the guy who wrote the Jesus Papers told the guy who wrote the Da Vinci Code, you're full of crap. You can't write that. That's not truth, you know. But he wrote it anyway. Obviously, bestseller. People love a good story. But the guy who wrote the Jesus Papers wrote the truth behind... like what their archaeology was finding. So it's a really interesting compilation, like finding the papers that they found, these old urns and things like that. So it is more factual than the other ones, but he does kind of poke a few times at the Da Vinci Code, which was quite amusing.
Well, Dan Brown was, even whether I'm sure he can't believe this. Maybe he does, but he was saying that everything in the Da Vinci Code was true, wasn't he, when it came out, didn't he?
Yeah. He admits to believing it, but the man he was working with was saying, like, you were just jumping to conclusions. Yeah. There's no proof of that. It's half
plagiarised anyway from another book called The Holy Blood and the Holy Grail, which came out in the 80s, which is a famous book about the same sort of thing, about Jesus moving to France with Mary and having a lineage and stuff.
And having a baby and living on a farm.
That has actually been mentioned by Tom Holland because it's because a lot of the original documents are like forgeries and stuff and things that people have created for their own political gains, and there's something to do with the Cathars.
And also, if you were like a farmer and you said you found some old things and you got a few million for it, you'd be pretty happy. I'd try that scam. But the Jesus Papers talks about as well about like how they compiled the Bible and what they decided was going to go in and what wasn't going to go in and stuff like that, you know, which is what you were saying about.
Apart from, you can think of the Gospels as historical documents, can't you, really? Because they are, you know, they are not exactly contemporary, but they're like only decades after Jesus died that they were actually compiled and written. So the thing is, we forget that maybe there was more of an oral tradition back then where people did tell stories through rather than having it written down, which we're more used to. So, and then obviously all the letters, the St. Paul's letters and all the Acts and stuff, well, they're actually the actual letters that he had written to the Corinthians and blah 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 blah. So they're all like, but I don't know about all the other. I can't. We probably never really studied the other stuff like Revelations.
Revelations is a great one for people to debate over, because obviously it talks about the end of the world, and in it, you know, they say silly things like, you know, the four horsemen of the apocalypse, and this coming in and this coming in, and then people like to nitpick and they go, well, this word is the word for basket, and this is this word, and when you translate it like this, it means rocket ship, and it's great. It's so
that was definitely Trump. That I remember Nostradamus has loads of predictions, isn't he? That people sort of like say, oh well, actually that, because I remember when 9/11 happened, they had like a Nostradamus a passage where he says something about two twin brothers fall down on when the millennium happens or something, and it was like well, yeah, that could really mean. But then, I mean, when you've predicted the end of the world more than once, I think that's when. Do you know what I mean?
I think that's when you know something's not quite right.
And there's like a famous like Baptist minister in America that predicts it every few years, and sort of like, oh yeah, I forgot to carry the one. You know?
No, right, of course.
Fool me once, you know, that stuff. Yeah. Like, once I've sold all my possessions and stuff, like twice, I'm gonna feel really stupid, you know. Like. So, can I ask you what being upside down is good for then?
Yeah, sure.
So, I was just, as a bit of context there, so most yoga classes, towards the end, you make us go upside down.
Yes.
Force us, like, quite harshly and say, this is...
Get upside down right now.
Or you're not leaving. So, what's the rationale?
So, it's kind of obvious, but when you go upside down, like, your blood is reversed. So that's really good for you, to allow the blood to flow back down. You kind of think like, why would that be good? You know, because surely your heart's doing it. But if you take a more relaxed one, then you can get that blood to come back down to the heart and to the lungs and things without the heart having to pump extra hard to bring it back up. Another improvement is, or like another thing that can happen is if the leg muscles, basically your calves, they're kind of called your second heart. So your calves have to be strong enough to push the blood back up into the body. It's helped by the calves. So if we go upside down, we don't have to have the calves extra strong or extra healthy to be able to pull that blood back into the organs area. So that's the circulation aspect is really important. So going upside down has a lot of benefits for your circulation, kind of bringing the blood out of the feet, putting fresh blood back there when you lay back down again, you know, things like that. Some people say that it helps the lymph system. Your lymph system is very similar to your circulatory system. So it's fluid and tubes around the body. But your lymph system doesn't have a heart. So there's no pump that moves that fluid around. But the lymph system is also only one way. So that's why it's a bit like, it's not quite the same. There's valves in the lymph system. So when the fluid goes through, it doesn't actually go back the same way. But any movement that you do helps move that lymph fluid around the body. So being upside down will help move that fluid around, but it's not necessarily like literally coming right back down the way it went, like your blood would. But having that fluid movement is really good because your lymph system governs your immunity and all of that. So you need to keep that stuff moving around. Depending on what you're doing, it can relax you. So the idea of slowing down the heart rate can also kind of stimulate your relaxing nervous system so that you can slow the heart rate down and then you kind of calm down a little bit and you start to find that kind of resting heart rate again. And then from if it's not easy, so assuming you're taking like a harder inversion, something that's a little bit more difficult, you're going to build strength, obviously. in your arms and your upper body and things like that.
Like a
and your core. Like
headstand
say
or
if you're
something
doing,
like that,
yeah, like if you're doing a headstand or crane or crow, those are, even though they're small little shapes, they are upside down. You know, you are pretty upside down in them. You tend not to hold them very long. If you're doing like a handstand against a wall or something like that, even if you're using supports, if you're upside down, you're going to be building some strength if it's a harder pose, and it will boost your energy if it's a harder pose. So being upside down will bring more blood to the head, and it will give you a little bit more alertness. So that's not to say you can be alert and be calm at the same time. Sometimes we think that when we're alert, we're extra hyper or something, but we can be both. You know, you can be pretty alert, pretty awake and stuff, but still be pretty calm and have a nice slow heart rate. But obviously, if it's a hard one, it's going to increase your heart rate. And then in that way, you could become more awake and more alert because your blood's pumping and you're a bit like, you know, deep breaths. So overall, I think that covers most of it. Lymph system, circulatory system, strength, nervous system.
So is it just good to be sort of somewhat upside down every so often, just even if you're not doing a class?
I would say so, yeah. I would say it's a good way to rest if you want to like lay on the floor and put your legs on the seat of a chair or a couch, something like that.
Did you tell me that helped digestion at all? Did I imagine that?
Yeah, so it comes back to the idea of the nervous system. So if you can calm yourself down by going slightly inverted, that can help digestion. But I wouldn't go upside down if you're full of food. Kind of obvious, but is likely to cause some indigestion. The other thing is I know if you tend to hold liquid in the calves, so that sometimes happens when we start to get a bit older, then having your feet up above the heart for 30 minutes will pull all that liquid out and back to the bladder where it needs to be. Mm-hmm. So that can be very helpful if you end up having to get up in the night to go to the loo, and you hadn't obviously just drank 3 cups of tea before you went to bed or something like that, then, you know, sitting for a little bit with the feet up can help get that out of the legs so that you can go to the loo before and then not have to wake up in the night.
So when you're an older person, you should have like a raised foot maybe when you're in bed.
Yeah, if you actually go to the doctor for nighttime urination or whatever it's called, that is what they will advise. They will say you need, before you go to bed, you need to put your feet up. Within the hour before you go to bed, you need to put your feet up above your heart for 30 minutes. It was only about a foot. It doesn't have to be up very high. You lay flat, you put your feet on a little table or something. But then all the fluid will come out. Like, because we come back to the idea that your calves are your second heart. Right. So if your calves aren't getting the movement and the strength and the stuff that they need, you know, like the toe lifts and things, then they're not pumping that back out of the legs. It's going to settle into that area. And it's probably not enough that you think, oh, my calves are swollen. You know, it's not going to be like, oh, look at my ankles. You know, it's not like that. It'll just be, if you were to test, you would see it was there, but you might not notice if you weren't really paying attention. They're not going to be like balloons or anything. So
I mean, that doesn't sound actually as crazy to me as because almost trying to imagine what the calf looks like compared to like, it does kind of half look like a heart in some ways, doesn't it? As a muscle wise, it's not a stretch of the imagination to think that.
It is really a really important muscle to keep strong, the calf, definitely. And that's why walking is good. That's why when people say, well, what should I do? Just go for a walk, because when you're moving your foot, you are moving the calf, you know, so just moving around is enough. But obviously, sometimes things have a bit of a knock-on effect. So if you have a problem with getting up in the night on a regular basis, you're not going to feel like walking because you're going to be too tired, you know, and then it kind of has a little spiral effect or whatever. So finding a gentle way to come out of that and give yourself more energy so that you can build up to doing stuff again or something. But yeah, inversions aren't bad. They're pretty good for you. The main thing is obviously never hold them if you feel bad.
Yeah.
So only hold for as long as you want. You're literally talking less than 60 seconds. There's nothing necessarily wrong with holding that longer than that, you know, a couple minutes, 5 minutes, something like that. But obviously we know that going upside down for a very long time would be very bad for you. So.
Well, speaking of that, and linking it back to the previous topic, that's how St. Peter was crucified upside down, wasn't he? So.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that.
Yeah.
Isn't that awful? What a horrible thing to do.
But for a couple of minutes, his heart and calves were doing good work. But
for a few minutes, he was very, very fit. And then he wasn't fit. Yeah, we all know that if you hang yourself upside down, that is a bad idea. Because you cannot, your body needs gravity.
Yeah.
Which is why being in space is very bad for you. One of the reasons why being in space.
Oh, you and being in space, you're dead set against it.
You won't get me in space. I hate it. It's a horrible thing. I don't know why people do it to themselves. It's like they never got the warning. Warning, did you know this will probably destroy your body?
Wow. You've got to think that it's a trade-off, isn't it? Going into space is not something that everybody gets to do. So.
Yeah, I just hope they get well compensated.
Well, yeah, but if it's rich tourists, they probably will. So.
Oh yeah, well yeah, okay, fair enough. If it's, I meant more like the people that are up there working, the scientists and stuff. But yeah, rich tourists, I don't care about them. They're just dumb. So. Right.
Surely someone that makes a load of money can't be dumb.
Instagram begs to differ.
Mm-hmm, yeah. All right, well, I don't know if that's enough information on being upside down. But you've got to...
No, I thought that was all right.
Got to... You can't just go straight from upside down to just like getting up and wandering about though.
Oh, yes. So that is something that I see a lot in classes with new people who aren't used to being upside down. They'll have their legs up in an L shape and then you say, right, bring your legs down. And they will swing right up to seated. Like literally, they just roll the legs down and rock straight up to seated. That is a good way to get yourself super dizzy or even pass out. So don't do that. It's very rare that you pass out, really, but that kind of drop in pressure is not good. You want to go slow. So you take yourself down slowly and controlled, and then you want to lie flat for a good 3 breaths and just notice how you feel. So a good way to remind yourself is if you still feel like all the blood is in your head, then stay lying down. Some days it might come out really quickly, you feel absolutely fine, back to normal in just a few seconds, then that's fine, you can sit up. But always do that check. It's like they're really excited little kids or something, and they're like, woohoo, I was upside down.
Yeah, but it's fun to swing up, isn't it? Like, do you know what I mean? Like,
I think so. Yeah. They're like really excited. They're like, look at me, I went upside down and I'm 30 years old. It's like, I know, but you're also 30 years old, so lay back down.
30's not old.
No, I know, but I mean, do you know many 30-year-olds that are rolling around on the floor? Other than us?
Me, yeah.
Anyway, should we stop it there?
Better go, because I was going to have a boiled egg.
Okay.
Well, actually, I'm going to have a poached egg on a crumpet.
Oh, well, I suppose it's kind of like a boiled. It's just cracked and then boiled, right?
Yeah,
Poached.
it is pretty much, yeah. I find it easier to do poached eggs than boiled eggs because I can't time a boiled egg because every egg's a different size, and so you can never quite get it quite right where it's like runny enough in the middle and stuff. So a poached egg, you can sort of tell because you kind of look at how set it is and stuff, and it's much quicker. So
yeah, right.
What a pearl of wisdom that is. That's definitely going in. So.
Yeah, definitely.
Should I say thanks for listening?
Yeah, you can do the thank you.
I'll say thanks for listening. Thanks for listening. Does that sound sincere? Or does that just like, I rushed that off, didn't I? Just like, yeah, thanks for listening. Bye now.
Yeah, bye. Thank you. No, that's good. Thank you for sticking around. Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed it. Get in touch.